It is time now for Money Power Politics. Barely 3 weeks after saying he'd stay out of the battle for Warner Brothers Discovery, Donald Trump appears to be entering the fray yet again. In a Truth Social post on Saturday, the president ordered Netflix, I'm going to say it again, ordered Netflix to fire one of their board members, Susan Rice, or, quote, pay the consequences. Republicans, free market enthusiasts, are you hearing that? Rice served, of course, in the Clinton, Biden, and Obama administrations. Trump's threat comes barely a week after Rice said, quote, it is not going to end well for businesses that bent the knee to Trump. Shares of Netflix fell more than 3% today, as did most of the market, with the Dow plunging more than 800 points on growing concerns about the future of tariffs and AI. Joining me now, John Harwood, veteran Washington correspondent, distinguished fellow at Duke University, and columnist for Zateo on Substack. Also here, Bharat Ramamurthy, former National Economic Council deputy director and author of The Bully Pulpit on Substack. Bharat, let's start with Netflix. The DOJ is now investigating whether the proposed company takeover with Warner Brothers would make Netflix too powerful and there wouldn't be enough competition. But are they laying this much scrutiny on Paramount?
No, of course not. You know, we've talked about this in the past with tariffs. I think that this is another example of Trump using the different authorities of government to basically advance his personal agenda. I think he likes tariffs because he can exempt people from tariffs based on how kind they are to him. And this, as you said, there's some antitrust scrutiny about this Netflix deal. And
Which
I
is
think
fair.
Sure, that's fair, but it's supposed to be an independent decision of the Department of Justice. The person at the Department of Justice who's supposed to be their head antitrust person was unceremoniously fired because under pressure from sort of MAGA loyalists because she was actually putting her foot down on some of these antitrust deals. And so I think Trump views this as another lever of power that he can use to get somebody with control, Paramount in this case, who is very sympathetic to the Trump agenda.
Okay, Paramount now has until tonight, midnight tonight, to submit their sort of best and final offer for Warner Brothers Discovery. Now, at the same time, Ted Sarandos of Netflix kind of brushed off this threat from Trump. And by the way, the threat originally came from Laura Loomer on social media. Now, Trump has wrangled it, but Ted Sarandos brushed it off, told the BBC, this is a business decision, not a political one. Except Trump has made it a political one.
Of course. Now, good for Sarandos to dismiss it, act like it's not a big deal. But it seems to me pretty clear where this is headed from Trump's perspective. And it actually always has, notwithstanding his statement a few weeks ago. I cannot say I'm shocked that Donald Trump is not doing what he said he was going to do. He would like to have David and Larry Ellison to be in charge of CNN and other prime targets of this deal, and I think he's going to use, as Bharat was indicating, use his leverage to try to make that happen.
Let's talk about
until the courts stop him. That is to say.
When and if. Okay, I want to talk tariffs now. Earlier tonight, FedEx sued the U.S. government for a full refund on Trump's emergency tariffs, but Trump has already said it's going to take at least 5 years. Scott Bessent said, don't expect to get your money back. How difficult is this going to be? I mean, is it every single company is going to have to prove, no, our suppliers didn't give us a discount and then we didn't raise the prices for our customer? How is this going to happen?
I think it won't be that bad, but I think it will take some time for the courts to hash out and say these tariffs were put in place illegally. Therefore, any money collected under the tariffs was improperly gotten and should be returned to the person who paid them. And once FedEx or some of these companies actually win the lawsuit and are able to have a court-established method for claiming these refunds, I suspect that other companies will be able to come in and use the same process. Now, will that take 3 months or 6 months or 9 months? I suspect it's going to be somewhere in that range. And then the other part of this is, let's say the companies get those refunds, and let's say that they raise their prices in order to cover the cost of the tariffs initially. Well, do you think that if they get the money back, all that money is going to go back to the consumers who paid higher prices? I don't think it's not. I don't think it is.
It's not.
So I think the best case scenario here is that the companies get their money back, but you, the consumer out there, is probably going to be left holding the bag.
John, the administration is acting like these refunds are impossible. Bharat just laid it out. They're not impossible. But can't this White House make it really difficult?
Yes, I think they can make it difficult. But I think it's a sign of shifting winds that FedEx is standing up and saying we want our money back. And J.B. Pritzker, I mean, from the Democratic side, is saying,
Pretty clever.
the state of Illinois wants our money back. So I think that as people see Trump weakening politically, more and more of these corporations are going to begin making this argument and put more and more pressure on the administration. And I think Donald Trump is bitten off more than he can chew here.
The Wall Street Journal reports that people familiar with the president's plans are saying he is also weighing new tariffs, national security tariffs. How do any businesses operate in this environment? I was with a group of CEOs on Thursday saying just the tariff roller coaster is impossible.
Yep. Well, I think it's a little bit funny because when I was in the administration, we would get criticisms from businesses because we would pursue new rules, which would take 2 years, and we have a notice and comment process, and it was all very orderly, and they thought that that was creating uncertainty. Now, the President of the United States can change the tariff laws and change the entire economics of certain deals that they're trying to do overnight in a Truth Social post that he puts at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we've already seen over the last year an incredible chilling effect on certain categories of business investment. Basically, people are saying, I'm not going to put my money into any deal until I have a better understanding of where these tariffs are going to settle out. Now we have 2, 3, 4 different legal theories about certain types of tariffs that can be 10%, 15%, 20%. I just can't imagine that any serious business person is going to decide this is the right time to make a big investment.
No, especially because in just a couple of years, we won't have this administration. Now, at the same time,
American consumers are seeing this. It's no coincidence that 2/3 of the American people say they're opposed to these tariffs. Trump had the opportunity to step away from them. He's not doing it. He's going to keep hitting himself in the head with a hammer and come up with some different authority to implement the tariffs. It is not going to help him because Americans know this is not helping the economy.
well, the Journal is reporting that these tariffs are actually going to affect items that we need for manufacturing. The whole purpose of this, Trump has said from the beginning, which, is changing China's behavior in terms of their bad trade practices, but most specifically to bring manufacturing back.
Right, which is
we
why
already know
manufacturing jobs are going down.
shrank last year, but now these new tariffs are going to make it more expensive.
Yeah. I mean, Donald Trump is not delivering what he said he was going to deliver, and he's not even trying in a serious way. He's not making policy proposals that fit the goals that he articulated. The tariffs are not helping the economy at all, and people know it. And I think the court took the opportunity to say, you went too far. And, Donald Trump's at 36% in the new CNN poll for a reason.
All right, one last thing. We mentioned earlier the market dropping, I think 800 points today. Tomorrow night, the president is definitely going to tout the great performance of the market over the last year when he talks about his economic strategies. But who is he talking to? Because the Biden administration got themselves in trouble when you talked about inflation being short-term and how strong the economic recovery was. Trump is doing the same thing when he looks at the market as the entire economy.
Yeah, look, we learned the hard way that it's very hard to tell the American people how they should feel. You got to meet people where they are. And as John was saying, the American people have rendered their verdict on Donald Trump's stewardship of the economy, and it's a record low for economic stewardship.
And didn't have to be.
And it didn't have to be. And he's going to be up there tomorrow touting how strong the economy is, and I imagine it's going to be really grating for the vast majority of the American people who think it hasn't gotten better for me. I haven't seen a single thing that this administration has done that has made my life better, but I can point to several things, including the tariffs, that have made my life worse.
Market numbers are the report card that Donald Trump cares about and that his rich friends care about, and he is in the business of taking care of them.